Hey, hello. You're stuck in traffic with Wolf Gorlick? Couple minute riff on IT and IT security, and generally whatever's on my mind this given day. And today it's innovation. So with innovation, there's several different ways that innovation can spring from. Well, one of the main ones is to take something you know, and that's something that works in one area, and then apply it to another area. Right? So the transistor is usually the example that's given here. If you take a look at the history of transistors, it was originally designed for phone systems, and of course it really found its niche and exploded in terms of innovation within computing. Xerox PARC and their computer, same way. Several different cases of technologies that start in one area and are applied to another. Same thing happens with practices. So when everything moved into the cloud, a lot of innovation was, what does forensics look like in the cloud? What does incident response look like in the cloud? With the work we've been doing with industrial control systems, SCADA, ICS, Internet of Things systems in industrial space, so IoT, one of the areas that we've been exploring is what happens when common security methods move from one to another. What happens to our penetration testing? We actually had to develop an entirely different way of pen testing due to the sensitivity of ICS systems. And we're finding similar things with incident response. Part of this is driven by the life cycle of equipment, right? So when the transistor flipped on to computers and you got Moore's Law and everything, you ended up with about a 3-year life cycle. Purchase equipment, run it for 3 years. First year you get a lot of, not much value because you're implementing. Second year you get most of the value. Third year you're coasting on old equipment and you swap and you repeat. Industrial systems, on the other hand, are on about a 10-fold scale of that. So where computers are on a 3-year system, most of your industrial systems are on a 30-year system. So a lot of the equipment that we're dealing with, that we're assessing, that we're looking at to secure, was like purchased in the 90s. Interesting. Which means we probably got like a good 10 years to go before a lot of this equipment gets phased out and more secure stuff gets put in. So you're looking at equipment that was put in the 90s, which means a lot of the same security concerns that were in our heads at the 90s. What about Christmas tree scans? What about Telnet? What about, serial protocols? All those things, they're still around. It's like what's new is old again. It's fantastic. So it also means that a lot of the practices we developed in, say, incident response do not apply to these, 15, 20-year-old systems. So, for example, incident response, if you look at like the pick roll model or whatnot, by the time you get to containment, what are you doing? You're segmenting off the systems and you're re-imaging them and rebooting them and you're good to go. You want to have fun? Talk to a plant manager or someone who's responsible for ICS systems. Say, oh, by the way, we want to take these systems offline, re-image them, and reboot them. Let me know how that goes. If you can make it back to a keyboard after that and stuff your fingers. It just doesn't work that way. So what we're having to do on the penetration testing side is doing a lot of low-risk reconnaissance activities. More of this work is done in the recon phase, and passive analysis of traffic flows and what have you. And good old-fashioned paper pen testing, right? Where you sift through the documentation provided for the vendor for a particular model, looking for advisories, looking for whatnot. And on the incident response side, what we're doing is we're relying more heavily on the traditional concepts of business continuity and disaster recovery, as opposed to some of the more innovative IR responses. So we may not say, okay, we're going to re-image for containment, but perhaps we have a redundant system, we have a redundant line, we have contingencies in place to take the line off, or we have backup equipment. So BCP DR, for years and years I've said IR is just like BCP and DR, only different. Well, now IR is just like BCP DR, only the same. at least when you're dealing with 20 to 30-year-old equipment. So in sum, You want to look at something innovative, take a common practice that's been developed and honed in your area, and look at changes in either your scope, such as expanding to operational technology, or changes in the IT landscape, such as moving to software as a service and new things like Docker and whatnot, and see how those areas apply to the new areas. Cheers.